I used to believe in the kind of love that only comes from parents. You know, that unshakable, unconditional love, the type that holds you when you cry and lifts you when you fall. For most of my childhood, I clung to that belief like a lifeline. I thought I was part of a family that, while flawed, still had love at its core. But all it took was for minutes, muffled voices behind a closed door, and one sentence I was never meant to hear, to make that illusion crumble. It happened on a Thursday night. I remember because it was leftover night mom's spaghetti from 2 days ago, heated up in the microwave and slightly burned around the edges. I was 15, quiet, observant, the so-called easy kid. I never made waves, never caused trouble. I was the one who faded into the background so my older brother, Ryan, and younger sister, Lily, could take center stage. I was walking back to my room after washing my plate when I noticed the light was still on in the living room. My parents didn't usually stay up late on weekdays, but the hushed tones I heard made me pause at the end of the hallway. Something in their voices wasn't right. Not angry, not sad, just low and heavy, like they were carrying a secret too big for daylight. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, I swear. I just froze. Then Mom said something that knocked the breath from my lungs. I just don't feel anything when I look at her, David. It's like she's not even ours. Her words cut so cleanly, so casually. I thought I had misheard her, but the silence that followed confirmed it. I stood there, back pressed against the wall, heart hammering like a war drum. She wasn't talking about Lily or Ryan. She was talking about me. Dad's voice came next, soft but sharp, like he was forcing the words out. She's always been distant, detached. Maybe that's why. Maybe we just never bonded with her the way we did with the others. I wanted to disappear. I wanted to scream, but mostly, I wanted to wake up and find out this was some horrible dream, that I hadn't just overheard my parents emotionally disowning me. I slipped back to my room in a daze, locking the door behind me as quietly as I could. I sat on my bed, staring at the floor, feeling like the ground beneath me had crumbled and left me floating in a void. I didn't know how to escape. That night, I didn't sleep. That night, something inside me broke. I wish I could tell you I confronted. Then the next morning that I had some dramatic showdown in the kitchen while the coffee brewed, and the morning light crept across the tiles. But I didn't. I couldn't. I went to school. I smiled when I had to. I laughed when it was expected. But inside, I was screaming. The kind of scream that never reaches your throat, just echoes endlessly in your chest. Every interaction with them after that night felt like a lie. When Mom asked me how my day was, I had to stop myself from shouting, "Why do you care?" When Dad hugged me after Ryan's soccer game, I stiffened. Remembering how he said he never really bonded with me, I started noticing things I had never paid attention to before. Like how they always made it to Ryan's games, even if it meant skipping dinner. Or how Lily's art projects were proudly pinned on the fridge, while my report card straight A's and all was shoved in a drawer. I wasn't imagining it. I was just finally seeing it. I began pulling away, slowly at first. I stayed in my room more. I stopped volunteering information. I didn't ask them for help. And the strangest part, they didn't seem to notice. One weekend, Lily came home crying because she lost her favorite bracelet. Mom turned the house upside down looking for it. I once had a nosebleed so bad I passed out in the bathroom, and when I told her about it the next day, she barely looked up from her crossword puzzle. I kept waiting for them to show the same urgency, the same concern, the same love they showed my siblings, but it never came. And the worst part, I started believing I didn't deserve it. I spiraled, quietly. I became even more reserved, more distant. I began questioning everything about myself. Was I adopted? Was I a mistake? Had I done something as a child that made them stop loving me? I even searched through Mom's closet for old hospital papers. I convinced myself there had to be an explanation, a hidden truth that made sense of why I felt like a ghost in my own home. Instead, I found a showbox full of photos, baby pictures of Ryan and Lily, pages of handwritten notes tracking their first words, favorite toys, funny habits. Then I found my section just to blurry ultrasound scans with baby number scribbled on the back. No name, no dates, no memories. I think the worst part about growing up in a house that doesn't love you is the way you start shrinking to fit the corners. I didn't want to be a burden, so I made myself invisible. I didn't want to ask for more, so I settled for crumbs. I told myself it was enough, that I was enough, but I wasn't, not to them. That realization, it burrowed into my bones. One day, I overheard another conversation, this time with Ryan in the kitchen. He was upset about his car breaking down. "I don't know how I'll afford the repairs," he said. Don't worry, Mom replied. We'll cover it. Of course we will. You're our boy. 3 weeks earlier, I had asked for help paying for a school field trip. It was only $60. They told me, point blank, that things were tight and I'd have to figure it out myself. I did. I sold a few old textbooks online and walked instead of taking the bus for a week. I remember sitting in my room that night, staring at the ceiling and wondering what it would take for them to see me. The way they saw him. It wasn't about the money, it was about the message. You're our boy. I was their daughter. But apparently, that didn't mean the same thing. Things came to a head during Christmas that year. We were all gathered in the living room, the tree lit, presents stacked neatly underneath. I had bought everyone gifts with the little money I made tutoring, even Mom and Dad. I wrapped them carefully, put thought into each one. When it was my turn to open presents, I received a generic sweater to sizes too big and a bath set I had seen Mom buy during a clearance sale a month earlier. Lily got a digital camera. Ryan got a gaming console. They barely looked at me when I said thank you. I remember thinking, this is the last time I will do this. The last time I will pretend this is normal, that this doesn't hurt. A few weeks later, I started writing everything down, every moment, every word I remembered from that night. I don't know why. Maybe I just needed proof that I wasn't imagining it all, that I wasn't going crazy, that I wasn't unlovable. And as I wrote, something in me began to shift. For so long, I thought the problem was me, that I had done something to deserve being treated like an afterthought. But as I reread the things they said, the way they acted, the countless ways they dismissed and ignored me, I began to realize the problem wasn't me. It was them. They failed me. As parents, as people. And that realization had hurt, but it also freed me. I wish I could say that realization that the problem wasn't me made everything better. That it gave me power, peace, or at least some sort of closure. But it did in single quotes instead. It made me see everything in a new, harsher light. I started listening differently, watching more closely. Not like the invisible, quiet daughter who tiptoed around just to be tolerated, but like a detective, desperate to understand what I was living through. And what I discovered was even worse than I thought. A few weeks after Christmas, I overheard my parents again. This time, they weren't whispering in the living room. They were in the kitchen, just one room away from where I was studying at the dining table. The walls were thin. They should have known better, but they didn't even try to lower their voices this time. She's always been strange, Mom said. Rinsing out a pan, never cried much as a baby, didn't want to be held, just sat there, staring at the ceiling. She's not like the other two, Dad muttered. Ryan and Lily, they're warm, loving. She's like the guest who never left. Exactly, Mom agreed. It's like raising someone else's kid. I sat there frozen, pretending to highlight a textbook passage, even though the words had long since blurred through the tears forming in my eyes. My chest tightened, my ears burned, and my hands trembled just enough that I had to clench them under the table to stay still. This time, they weren't even discussing a moment of frustration or hurt. They were rewriting my entire childhood, making me out to be some emotionless, robotic child who never wanted love, as if that excused how they treated me. They weren't just emotionally detached, they were justifying it, making a case for why their daughter didn't deserve the love they so freely gave to her siblings. I wanted to scream, I'm right here. You're talking about me like I'm some ghost haunting your home. But I'm real. I feel everything. But I said nothing. Because, what do you say to parents who don't think of you as theirs? That's when I started pulling away more deliberately. I stopped calling them Mom and Dad in my head. I stopped sharing any part of my life. When teachers asked about my family during parent-teacher meetings, I dodged the question or laughed it off. I let people assume we were close because the alternative was too messy to explain. And I started saving every penny I could. I picked up extra tutoring hours. I sold old clothes online. I lied and said I was staying late at school for projects, when I was actually working at the local library, shelving books or helping kids with homework. I had a plan, get out. That was the goal now. Not to fix things. Not to make them love me. Not to be enough just to escape. And yet, despite all of that, a small, pathetic part of me still hoped things would turn around. That maybe, just maybe, there would be a moment where one of them would pull me aside and say, I'm sorry. We were wrong. We love you. We just didn't know how to show it. That sliver of hope lingered like a splinter under my skin, even as everything they did proved otherwise. The final straw came in the spring, during Ryan's graduation. He had won an award, something about community service and leadership. My parents were beaming, practically floating with pride. They threw a huge party, Invited relatives, friends, neighbors, even his girlfriend's family. I helped set up the decorations, stayed up late printing out banners, cleaned the backyard, and even skipped a tutoring session just to hang string lights for the party. No one noticed. Not even once did anyone say, "Thank you." Not even a glance in my direction when people praised how great the party looked. But the worst part wasn't the party. It was what happened the next morning. I was walking past the hallway when I heard my name. Ava, Dad chuckled. She's a loner. Always has been. Don't think she'll ever be the one we brag about at parties. Well, not everyone can be exceptional, Mom said with a sigh. At least she's quiet. That was it. That was the moment. That was when I knew I was done trying. I stopped waiting for love from people who saw me as a burden, who didn't even consider me worth celebrating, who looked at me like I was a stranger eating their food and living in their house out of obligation. From that day on, I vowed to build a life without them. One where I didn't constantly have to prove I was worthy of being loved. One where I didn't have to listen to the people who were supposed to protect me, casually dismantle my existence in passing conversation. I poured myself into school. I graduated early. I applied to colleges out of state, far out of state. When I got accepted to a university on the other side of the country, I didn't even tell them at first. I just smiled to myself in my room, hugging the acceptance letter with trembling hands. But reality has a cruel way of showing up, even when you've already decided to move on. It was June when my mom knocked on my door for the first time in weeks. She stepped inside without waiting for permission, holding a letter she had clearly opened. "You got into Westfield." I nodded. "That's far." I didn't say anything. "You didn't think to talk to us about this." Talk? About what? The way you never wanted me. "We're still your parents, Ava," she added, her voice tight, offended even. That was the first time I really looked her in the eyes and said what I had been swallowing for months. "You only call yourselves my parents when it's convenient." She blinked, stunned, like she had been slapped. "Excuse me. You've spent years treating me like a stranger, like some charity case you're forced to live with. Don't act shocked now just because I'm leaving." Her mouth opened, then closed. But she didn't deny it. She didn't say, "That's not true." She didn't say, "Of course we love you." She just stood there, lips pressed tight, and finally turned around and left. That silence said more than any apology ever could. The day I left for college, they didn't drive me to the airport. They didn't help me pack. Ryan and Lily weren't home. No one said goodbye. I stood on the porch with my single suitcase and my scholarship folder, waiting for the taxi I had called myself. And as I sat in the backseat, watching that house grow smaller in the rearview mirror, I felt a strange mix of grief and relief. Like I was mourning a death, but finally breathing again for the first time. Because that house wasn't my home. It never had been. But freedom isn't always peaceful. When I got to college, I had to learn how to live all over again. I didn't know how to trust people. I didn't know how to take compliments or kindness without suspecting a hidden motive. Every friendship felt temporary. Every smile felt fake. I was waiting for the other shoe to drop for someone to realize I wasn't worth the effort and walk away like they did. And worst of all, I carried a guilt that wouldn't go away. Because what kind of daughter leaves her family behind without looking back? Even if they never loved me, was I heartless for walking away? I started therapy in my second semester. It was free through the university, and I almost didn't go. I nearly skipped the first appointment, but something in me, maybe the part that was still desperately holding on, forced me to show up. And I'm so glad I did. Because for the first time, someone told me, "That wasn't your fault." Over and over again. That wasn't your fault. I cried for hours that day. Not just for what I went through, but because I finally felt seen, validated, held, in a way my parents never managed to do. It's been years now since that night I overheard them for the first time. I never went back. They never called. They never reached out. Ryan sent a message once, during my third year of college, asking why I had ghosted to the family. I ignored it. He was old enough to have known what was going on. Old enough to have seen how I was treated. He just didn't care enough to say anything. And Lily, she unfollowed me on everything after I stopped responding to her text about her art contest and prom pictures. I grieved them. All of them. But now, finally, I'm building something new. For the longest time, I thought healing would come with answers, some big revelation, or an apology that would make everything click into place. I kept imagining this version of closure that looked a lot like a movie ending. My parents sitting across from me, teary-eyed, telling me they were wrong. But real life doesn't tie things up in neat little bows. Instead, Healing came in moments I never expected. Like the first time someone called me family and actually meant it. It was my roommate, Jess. She was nothing like me, loud, fearless, chaotic in the best way. She had an annoying habit of leaving mugs everywhere and blasting to thousands pop music while doing laundry. And she loved her people fiercely. She came from a big, warm, messy family that talked over each other at dinner and hugged for too long and argued like it was a sport, but they loved each other, and it showed. Jess took one look at me during our second week of living together and said, "You've got quiet pain written all over you." I tried to laugh it off, but she didn't. Let it go. She saw me. She really saw me. She was the first person I told everything to. Not in one sitting, but in fragments, over late night ramen and study breaks. I told her about that night I heard my parents talking, about the conversations that followed, about the way I was treated like an outsider in my own family. She didn't interrupt, didn't pity me. She just sat there taking it in. And then she said something I'll never forget. "You didn't deserve that. None of that. But you're here. You survived it. That makes you strong as hell, Ava." I think a part of me started healing that very moment. I met more people like her over time, people who didn't just accept me, but chose me, friends who became family, professors who believed in me, co-workers who cheered me on, even strangers online who read my blog posts and messaged me to say, "This happened to me too." It was overwhelming and beautiful and heartbreaking all at once, because I realized what I'd been missing my whole life: connection, validation, safety. I had grown up in a house full of people, and yet I had never really been known, never truly felt safe, never believed I had a place. But now I was making that place for myself. In my final year of college, I published an anonymous essay for a campus journal. It was titled, "When You're the Ghost in Your Own Family." I poured every memory into it: the overheard words, the missing love, the decision to walk away. I didn't expect much from it, but it went viral. Within a week, my inbox was flooded with messages from students and adults alike. Some said they cried reading it. Some said it gave them courage. Some said they didn't feel so alone anymore. One message stood out. It was from a girl named Elena. "I thought I was crazy. I thought I was the only one who felt like I didn't belong in my own house. Thank you for writing this. You gave me language for something I couldn't explain." I broke down when I read that, because that's exactly what I needed. Years ago, language. Someone to help me name what I was going through. To tell me that emotional abandonment is still abandonment. That just because no one hit me or screamed at me didn't mean I wasn't being harmed. And now I had done that for someone else. A few months after that essay was published, something happened I never expected. I got a letter, a real one, not a text, not an email. It was from my mother. Her handwriting was still familiar, tight, careful, trying too hard to be neat. The envelope was plain, no return address, just my name and my new city. Inside was a 2-page letter. No greeting, no dear Ava, just a rambling monologue that didn't say what it needed to. She never apologized. She never said, "I was wrong." What she said instead was this: "I don't know where things went wrong. Maybe we didn't connect the way we should have. Maybe it's on me. I hope you're doing okay." That was it. Maybe it's on me. Even in the one moment she could have chosen truth, she defaulted to vagueness, to distance, to denial. I folded the letter and tucked it into a drawer, not because I needed it, but because it reminded me why I left. There's a strange grief that comes with surviving a family that never truly saw you. It's not like mourning someone who died. It's mourning someone who's still alive but never really existed for you the way you needed them to. And yet, I'm not bitter. Not anymore. Because bitterness keeps you tethered to people who never deserved you in the first place. I chose peace instead. A year after college, I stood on the balcony of my first apartment. Jess was helping me hang fairy lights. I had just landed a job at a publishing house editing real stories for a living. I was finally doing what I loved. And for the first time in my life, I said it out loud. "I'm happy." Jess turned to me, confused. "What?" "I think I'm really, actually happy," I repeated, stunned by how true it felt. She didn't say anything. She just hugged me. Tight. The best part: I built this life from scratch. I built it without their support, without their money, without their approval. I gave myself the love they never could. I became the person I needed. When I was a scared 15-year-old standing in the hallway, listening to her parents dissect her worth like it was a casual conversation over wine. And I made peace with the fact that I may never hear "I love you" from them again. Because the truth is, I don't need it anymore. I love me now. That's Enough. People often ask me if I'll ever go back, try to reconnect, try to heal things with my family of origin. And to that I say, you don't owe healing to the people who broke you and never looked back. Forgiveness is for you, not for them. Sometimes healing means walking away and never reopening the door. Sometimes it means building your own house, one full of light, truth, and love, and locking it tight behind you. I don't know what my parents are doing now. I don't know if they read the essay. I don't know if they talk about me. I don't know if they miss me. But I know this: I hear them differently now. Their silence no longer defines me. Their absence no longer wounds me. And that night, the night they didn't know I could hear them, it still hurts. It always will. But it also woke me up. It pushed me out of a home that never loved me and into a world that's still messy, still hard, but finally mine. I don't need to be their daughter to be whole. I'm Ava, and I'm still standing.